The morning sun cast long shadows across the military training facility as Elena Martinez adjusted her shooting stance for the 100th time that week. Her father, Colonel Rafael Martinez, watched from behind the safety glass, his weathered face showing both pride and concern. At 19, Elena had already broken 3 base record for marksmanship accuracy, but today felt different. Today, she sensed something was about to change everything. Focus on your breathing, Mija, her father had always told her. The rifle is just an extension of yourself. Trust it, and it will never let you down. Those words echoed in her mind as she lined up her shot. The target stood 800 meters away, barely visible to the naked eye, but through her scope, it might as well have been within arm's reach. Elena came from a long line of soldiers. Her grandfather had fought in World War II. Her father had served in Vietnam and later conflicts, and now she was preparing to carry on the family tradition. But being a woman in the military in 1987 meant facing challenges that her male relatives never had to consider. Every day, she had to prove herself twice as hard, twice as fast, and twice as accurate. The shooting range fell silent as Elena took her position. Other soldiers gathered behind the safety barrier, some genuinely interested in watching the colonel's daughter perform, others hoping to see her fail. Elena had learned to block out both the supporters and the doubters. Her world narrowed to just 3 things: her heartbeat, her breathing, and the target. She squeezed the trigger with the gentle pressure her father had taught her since she was 12 years old. The rifle kicked against her shoulder, a familiar sensation that felt like coming home. Through her scope, she watched the bullet find its mark dead center. Perfect shot, but Elena felt no satisfaction. Something in the air told her this might be one of her last opportunities to prove what she could do with a rifle in her hands. Colonel Martinez approached his daughter as she unloaded her weapon. His expression was serious, the kind of look that Elena had learned to recognize over the years. It meant difficult news was coming. "Elena, we need to talk," he said quietly. "There's been a development regarding your military career path." Elena's heart sank. She had suspected this conversation was coming. Recent policy changes in Washington had been making waves throughout the military. Women's roles were being redefined, and not always in ways that expanded opportunities. She had heard whispers in the corridors about appropriate assignments for female personnel. "Let me guess," Elena said, setting down her rifle with careful precision. "They're moving me out of combat training." Her father nodded grimly. "The new directive came down yesterday. All female personnel with specialized weapons training are being reassigned to support roles. No exceptions, even for someone with your scores." Elena felt the familiar fire rising in her chest, the same determination that had driven her to outshoot every recruit in her class. "Dad, you know this is wrong. You've seen what I can do. My scores are higher than 90% of the men here." "I know, Mija. I've been fighting this decision for weeks, but it's coming from above my pay grade. They want you transferred to communications within the month." Communications. Elena nearly laughed at the irony. They wanted to take someone who could put a bullet through a quarter at 500 meters and have her operate radio equipment. It wasn't that she looked down on communication specialists. Every role in the military had its importance, but it felt like being told she could no longer use her greatest talent. "What if I refuse the transfer?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then you'll be discharged. Dishonorably, most likely. And, Elena, there's something else. The new policy also requires all female personnel to surrender their personal weapons for security evaluation. They're collecting rifles tomorrow." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Her rifle wasn't just a tool. It was a part of her identity. The weapon had been a gift from her father when she graduated top of her marksman class. It was a custom-built precision instrument that she had modified and adjusted over months until it fit her like a second skin. "They can't take my rifle," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's not even military property. The order covers all weapons on base, regardless of ownership." "I'm sorry, Elena. I try to get exceptions made, but..." Elena stared at the rifle in her hands. Every scratch on the stock told a story. Every adjustment to the scope represented hours of practice and dedication. Tomorrow, strangers would take it away and probably lock it in some storage facility where it would gather dust. That evening, Elena sat in her small quarters, cleaning and maintaining her rifle one last time. She had done this routine thousands of times before, but tonight every motion felt final. She thought about her grandfather's stories of fighting in the Pacific Theater, how he had relied on his rifle to keep him alive through impossible odds. She thought about her father's tales from Vietnam, where accuracy meant the difference between coming home and not coming home at all. Elena had never been in actual combat, but she understood the weight of responsibility that came with being a marksman. Someone might depend on her accuracy to save their life someday. How could she fulfill that responsibility if they took away her ability to train and maintain her skills? A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Sergeant David Chun, one of her few genuine friends among the training staff. Chun had always treated her as an equal, never making her feel like she had to prove herself just because she was a woman. "I heard about the transfer," Chun said quietly. "I wanted to say I'm sorry. It's not right what they're doing." Elena invited him in. Chun was one of the few people she trusted completely, and she needed to talk to someone who understood what this meant. "They're making a mistake, Chun. Not just with me, but with the whole policy. Women can serve in combat roles just as effectively as men. We've proven it over and over." Chun nodded. "I know. Your scores speak for themselves. But, Elena, there's something else you should know. There are rumors about why this policy change is really happening." "What kind of rumors?" Chun glanced around nervously before continuing. "Word is there's going to be a major operation soon. Something that's going to require the best marksmen available. Some people think they're moving women out of combat roles, so they won't have to consider them for this mission." Elena felt her pulse quicken. "What kind of operation?" "Nobody knows for sure. Classified above my level. But if I had to guess, it's something dangerous enough that they want to keep it male-only, regardless of qualification." The conversation continued late into the night. Chun shared more details about the rumored operation, though he emphasized that most of it was speculation. What seemed clear was that something significant was being planned, and Elena's forced transfer might be directly related to keeping her away from it. As Chun prepared to leave, he turned back to Elena with a serious expression. "Elena, promise me something. If this rumors about the operation turn out to be true, don't do anything foolish. I know you, and I know you want to prove a point. But some fights aren't worth the cost." Elena promised, though they both knew she was saying what she needed to hear rather than what she actually intended to do. The next morning arrived too quickly. Elena stood in formation with the other female personnel as military officials collected their weapons. One by one, rifles were tagged and loaded into trucks. When Elena's turn came, she handed over her rifle with steady hands, though inside, she felt like she was losing a part of herself. The officer taking her weapon barely glanced at it. To him, it was just another rifle to be cataloged and stored. He had no idea he was handling a precision instrument that could consistently hit targets at ranges that most people couldn't even see clearly. Serial number 7749521. Custom modification notes. Extensive, the officer muttered as he filled out paperwork. "You'll get a receipt for this, Martinez. If you want to reclaim it after your service, you'll need to file the proper forms." After service. The phrase stung Elena more than she expected. 3 months ago, she had been planning a 20-year military career. Now she was being shuffled off to a support role with a clear message that her combat skills weren't needed or wanted. As the truck carrying her rifle disappeared around a corner, Elena made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to accept this quietly. If there really was an operation coming that required the best marksman, she was going to find a way to be part of it, with or without official approval. That afternoon, Elena began what she privately called reconnaissance. She started paying closer attention to conversations around the base, looking for any hints about the rumored operation. She volunteered for extra duties that might give her access to information or areas of the base she normally wouldn't see. Her first break came when she overheard a conversation between two communications officers. They were discussing encrypted message traffic that had increased dramatically over the past week. The messages were related to something called Operation Desert Shield, and they required specialized personnel for an urban extraction scenario. Elena's mind raced. Urban extraction usually meant rescuing hostages or extracting friendly personnel from hostile territory. It was exactly the kind of operation where accurate marksmanship could mean the difference between success and disaster. And if her suspicions were correct, they were planning this operation without considering any female personnel, regardless of qualification. Over the next several days, Elena gathered more pieces of the puzzle. The operation was scheduled to take place within 2 weeks. It involved a small team of specialists who would need to operate in an environment where precision was crucial. Most importantly, the mission planners were struggling to find enough qualified personnel for the marksman positions. Elena knew she was more qualified than at least half the men being considered for the team. Her scores proved it, her training proved it, and her dedication proved it. But none of that mattered because of a policy decision made by people who had probably never held a rifle in their lives. The frustration burned inside Elena like a constant fire. Every day in her new communications assignment felt like wasted time. She was capable of so much more than routing phone calls and maintaining radio equipment. Meanwhile, men with lower qualification scores were preparing for a mission where her skills could save lives. Elena's breaking point came when she overheard Sergeant Wilson, one of the least accurate marksmen in her former unit, bragging about being selected for the operation. "It's going to be easy money," Wilson told his friends. "How hard can it be to cover a bunch of guys grabbing some diplomat? Point, shoot, done." The casual attitude toward what Elena knew was a complex and dangerous mission made her blood boil. Wilson couldn't hit a target consistently at 300 meters, yet he was going on a mission where Elena's 800-meter accuracy might be the difference between success and catastrophe. That night, Elena made a decision that would define the rest of her life. If they wouldn't let her participate officially, she would find another way. She began planning what she knew was essentially a one-way mission. Once she took action, there would be no going back to her military career. But if she could prove that women deserved equal consideration for combat roles, maybe it would be worth the sacrifice. Elena spent the next week studying everything she could about the operation. She mapped out the location, studied the layout of the target building, and identified potential positions for providing overwatch support. She knew she couldn't carry out her plan alone, but she also knew that asking for help would put others at risk. The solution came from an unexpected source. Maria Santos, a former military mechanic who now worked as a civilian contractor on the base, had been following the policy changes with growing anger. Maria had lost her own military career years earlier due to similar discrimination, and she had no love for policies that kept qualified women from serving their country. "I heard about what they did to you," Maria said when she approached Elena one evening. "Taking your rifle, moving you to communications. It's wrong." Elena studied Maria carefully. Could she trust her with what she was planning? "It's more than wrong," Elena replied carefully. "It's dangerous. There are missions coming up where accuracy could save lives, and they're deliberately excluding qualified people." Maria nodded knowingly. "The urban extraction mission. I've been working on equipment prep for that operation." "Elena, I think I know what you're thinking, and I want you to know you're not alone." Over the next hour, Maria revealed that several civilian contractors and retired military personnel had been discussing the same issues Elena was facing. They had watched qualified women being pushed out of roles they excelled at, while less qualified men took their places on important missions. "There's a group of us who think it's time someone proved a point," Maria said. "We can't change the policy directly, but maybe we can demonstrate why it's wrong." Elena felt a surge of hope mixed with apprehension. Having support would make her plan more feasible, but it would also put other people at risk. Was proving a point worth potentially ruining multiple careers and lives? "What exactly are you suggesting?" Elena asked. Maria leaned closer. "We help you get to the operation site. You provide the Overwatch support they need, with or without official approval. When a mission succeeds because of your contribution, it becomes a lot harder for them to argue that women don't belong in combat roles. The plan was dangerous, possibly illegal, and almost certainly career-ending for everyone involved. It was also the only chance Elena saw to prove that the new policies were not just unfair, but potentially harmful to mission success and military personnel safety. Elena thought about her grandfather, who had risked everything fighting against injustice in World War II. She thought about her father, who had always taught her that doing the right thing sometimes meant breaking the rules. And she thought about all the qualified women who would come after her, who might benefit if someone took a stand now. "Tell me more about this plan," Elena said. As Maria outlined the details, Elena realized she was crossing a line from frustrated soldier to active rebel. But sometimes rebellion was the only way to serve your country when your country wouldn't let you serve properly. The die was cast, and Elena Martinez was about to prove that taking away someone's rifle didn't necessarily take away their ability to eliminate threats when it mattered most. Maria Santos led Elena through a maze of corridors beneath the base that most personnel didn't even know existed. The tunnels had been built during the Cold War as emergency evacuation routes, but now they served as meeting places for people who operated outside official channels. Elena's boots echoed softly against the concrete as she followed Maria deeper into the underground network. "How many people are involved in this?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Enough to make it work. Not so many that it becomes impossible to keep secret," Maria replied. "Everyone we brought in has their own reasons for wanting to see change." They stopped at a heavy metal door marked with faded radiation warnings from decades past. Maria knocked 3 times, paused, then knocked twice more. The door opened to reveal a room that looked like a military planning center, complete with maps, communication equipment, and surveillance gear that definitely wasn't standard issue. "Elena Martinez, meet the resistance," Maria said with a slight smile. 5 people sat around a table covered with detailed maps and photographs. Elena recognized 2 of them immediately. Technical Sergeant Linda Hayes, a communications specialist who had been passed over for promotion 3 times despite exemplary service records, and Master Sergeant Robert Kim, a retired special operations veteran who now worked as a security consultant. "Elena, we've been following your situation," Sergeant Hayes said. "What they did to you is exactly why we started this group. Qualified people being sidelined because of politics rather than ability." Elena took a seat at the table and studied the faces around her. Each person looked determined but also worried. They all understood the risks of what they were planning. "Before we go any further," said Sergeant Kim, "everyone needs to understand what we're really talking about here. This isn't just bending rules or working around regulations. What we're planning could be considered insubordination, unauthorized military action, maybe even treason if someone wants to push it that far." Elena felt the weight of those words. Treason, the charge that could end not just her career, but her freedom. Yet when she thought about Wilson and the other underqualified personnel heading into a dangerous situation, the risk seemed worth taking. "Tell me about the mission details," Elena said. "I need to know exactly what we're dealing with." A woman Elena didn't recognize, who appeared to be in her 40s with sharp eyes and graying hair, spread out a detailed floor plan on the table. "I'm Catherine Walsh, retired CIA analyst. I've been tracking the situation that's prompted this operation." Catherine explained that 3 American diplomats had been taken hostage in a foreign embassy compound. The hostage-takers were well-armed and highly trained, making a rescue operation extremely dangerous. The official rescue team would need precision marksman support to neutralize specific threats without endangering the hostages. "The building has multiple levels with clear sight lines from surrounding structures," Catherine continued. "A skilled marksman positioned correctly could provide overwatch for the entire operation. But the shots required are challenging, some at distances over 600 meters, others requiring precision to avoid hitting hostages who might be used as human shields." Elena studied the photographs and maps. Her mind automatically calculated angles, distances, and potential complications. This was exactly the kind of mission she had trained for her entire military career. "What's the official team composition?" Elena asked. Sergeant Kim consulted a folder marked with classified stamps. 8-man team. 4 entry specialists, 2 communications, 1 medic, 1 marksman. The marksman assigned is Corporal Jackson Miller. Elena knew Miller's scores by heart. He was adequate at standard ranges, but struggled with precision work beyond 400 meters. For this mission, adequate might not be enough. Miller's a good soldier, Elena said diplomatically, but this mission requires capabilities beyond his current skill level. Exactly, Catherine agreed, which is why we think unofficial support might save lives. Maria opened an equipment case that made Elena's heart skip. Inside was a rifle that looked almost identical to her confiscated weapon, but with even more advanced modifications. Where did you get this? Elena gritted. Let's say some of us have connections with people who understand the value of proper equipment, Maria replied. It's zeroed for your shooting style and equipped with enhanced optics for long-range precision work. Elena lifted the rifle carefully. The balance felt perfect, like the weapon had been built specifically for her hands. The scope was military-grade, but with improvements that weren't available through official channels. Someone had spent serious money and called in significant favors to acquire this equipment. Who's funding this operation? Elena asked. Equipment like this doesn't come cheap. Catherine and Maria exchanged glances. There are people in high places who disagree with current policies, but can't oppose them publicly, Catherine said carefully. Let's leave it at that. The implications were staggering. Elena was beginning to understand that her situation was part of a much larger conflict within the military and intelligence communities. People with real power were using her as a way to challenge policies they couldn't fight through official channels. Sergeant Kim pulled out a timeline. The official operation launches in 4 days. We estimate 6 hours for full execution, including extraction. Elena, if you're going to provide Overwatch support, you'll need to be in position 12 hours before the official team arrives. That means infiltrating the area and maintaining concealment for 18 hours total, Elena calculated. Doable, but challenging. The bigger challenge is getting you there and back without detection, Linda Hayes said. We've worked out transportation and communication protocols, but there are risks at every stage. Elena spent the next 2 hours studying every aspect of the plan. The group had done impressive work considering their limited official resources. Transportation would be provided by a contractor flight that regularly delivered supplies to the region. Elena would be listed as a communications equipment technician, giving her legitimate reason to be in the area. Once on location, she would need to reach an Overwatch position approximately 800 meters from the target building. The position offered clear sight lines to multiple entry points and windows where hostages might be held. Elena would maintain radio silence except for emergency situations, communicating primarily through predetermined signals. What happens after the mission? Elena asked. Assuming everything goes perfectly, how do we handle the aftermath? The room fell silent. Elena realized that while the group had planned the operational details carefully, they hadn't fully worked out how to protect everyone involved once the mission was complete. That depends on the results, Catherine said finally. If the mission succeeds and Elena's contribution is significant, it becomes harder for officials to punish the people involved. Success tends to provide political cover. And if something goes wrong, then we're all in serious trouble, Sergeant Kim said bluntly. Elena, you need to understand that this is a one-way decision. Once you're in position and the operation begins, there's no backing out safely. Elena nodded. She had understood the stakes from the beginning, but hearing them stated so directly made the reality sink in deeper. I need to think about this, Elena said. Not the mission itself. I'm committed to that. But I need to consider how to minimize risks for everyone else involved. Take tonight, Maria advised. We meet again tomorrow evening for final preparations if you decide to proceed. Elena returned to her quarters with her mind racing. The rifle they had shown her was better than anything she had ever used. The mission planning was thorough and professional. But the risks were enormous, not just for herself, but for everyone helping her. She lay awake most of the night thinking about her grandfather's war stories. He had often talked about moments when soldiers had to choose between following orders and doing what they believed was right. Elena had always wondered what she would do in such a situation. Now she knew. The next morning, Elena reported for her regular communications duties, but her mind was elsewhere. She found herself studying the male personnel who would be participating in the official mission, wondering if any of them were having doubts about their qualifications. Did they understand that people's lives might depend on their accuracy? During her lunch break, Elena received an unexpected visitor. Colonel Martinez appeared at her workplace, wearing the expression she had learned to associate with serious family conversations. "Elena, we need to talk privately," he said. They walked to a quiet area of the base where Elena's father stopped and turned to face her directly. "I've been hearing rumors," he said. "Rumors about unauthorized activities involving former personnel and civilian contractors. Elena, please tell me you're not involved in anything that could ruin your life." Elena felt her heart pounding. Had someone discovered their plans? Was her father testing her? Or did he genuinely know something? "Dad, I don't know what rumors you're referring to," she said carefully. Colonel Martinez studied his daughter's face. "Elena, I know you better than anyone. I can see that you're planning something. Whatever it is, please reconsider. Your military career isn't over just because of this transfer. There are other ways to prove your worth." "Are there?" Elena asked. "Dad, when was the last time a policy like this was reversed because people asked nicely?" "Change requires action, not just complaints. Change also requires staying alive and staying out of prison," her father replied. "Elena, I've spent 30 years in the military. I've seen careers destroyed and lives ruined because people thought they knew better than the system." Elena wanted to tell her father everything. She wanted his advice, his support, and his blessing. But she also knew that telling him would put him in an impossible position. As her commanding officer, he would be obligated to stop her. As her father, he might try to protect her in ways that would damage his own career. "Dad, I promise I'm not doing anything that will permanently damage my future," Elena said. It wasn't technically a lie. If the mission succeeded, it might actually improve her future prospects. Colonel Martinez clearly wasn't satisfied with that answer, but he seemed to recognize that pushing further wouldn't get him the truth he was seeking. "Elena, just remember that proving a point isn't worth destroying your life. And remember that your actions don't just affect you. Other people who care about you might suffer consequences too." That afternoon, Elena made a decision that surprised even herself. Instead of waiting for the evening meeting, she sought out Sergeant Wilson. She found him in the base recreation center, playing pool with several other soldiers who would be participating in the official mission. "Wilson, can I talk to you privately for a minute?" Elena asked. Wilson looked surprised, but agreed. They walked to a corner where they could speak without being overheard. "Wilson, I know you're selected for the upcoming operation," Elena began. "I wanted to wish you good luck and offer some advice." Wilson's expression shifted from surprise to suspicion. "What kind of advice?" "The mission briefings probably emphasize the importance of precision marksmanship. I know your training scores, and I think you might benefit from some additional practice before you deploy." Wilson's face flushed with anger. "Are you saying I'm not qualified for this mission?" "I'm saying that additional training never hurts anyone," Elena replied calmly. "The shots required for this mission are challenging even for experienced marksmen. Listen, Martinez, just because you got transferred out doesn't mean you can criticize people who are actually going to serve. Maybe if you hadn't been so focused on proving you were better than everyone else, you'd still be in a combat position." Elena felt her temper flare, but forced herself to remain calm. "Wilson, this isn't about my transfer. It's about making sure everyone comes home safely. If you're not confident in your long-range accuracy, maybe you should request additional training time." "I don't need training from someone who couldn't even keep her own assignment," Wilson snapped. "And I especially don't need advice from a woman who thinks she can shoot better than men." The conversation was going nowhere productive. Elena realized that Wilson was too proud and too threatened to accept help, even if it might save his life or the lives of his teammates. That evening, Elena returned to the underground meeting room with her mind made up. When she arrived, she found the same group plus 2 new faces, a helicopter pilot named Captain Torres and a former Marine sniper named Jake Morrison. "I've made my decision," Elena announced before anyone else could speak. I'm going to provide Overwatch support for this mission. But I have conditions. Catherine leaned forward. What kind of conditions? First, I want written documentation of everything we're planning, including evidence that I tried to go through official channels before taking this action. If things go wrong, I don't want anyone else taking the blame for my decisions. Second, I want a clear extraction plan that prioritizes getting me out safely, even if it means abandoning equipment or positions. Third, if the official mission appears to be succeeding without my intervention, I withdraw without taking any shots. The goal is to prove capability, not to interfere with successful operations. Sargant, Kim Nodit approvingly. Those are reasonable conditions. Elena, I think you're approaching this the right way. Jake Morrison spoke up for the first time. Elena, I've studied your shooting records. Your skills are impressive, but this mission is different from range shooting. Are you prepared for the psychological impact of taking lives in a combat situation? Elena had been expecting this question. Jake, I've been training for combat situations my entire military career. I understand the psychological realities of using lethal force when necessary to protect innocent lives. Training and reality are different things, Jake pressed. I'm not questioning your skills or your courage. I'm asking if you've considered how you'll feel afterward, assuming everything goes well. Elena took a deep breath. I've considered it extensively. If my actions save the lives of hostages or military personnel, I'll be able to live with whatever I have to do. If I do nothing and people die because the mission lacked adequate marksman support, that would be much harder to live with. The group spent the next 3 hours finalizing every detail of the plan. Transportation was arranged through Captain Torres, who would fly Elena to a civilian airfield near the target location under cover of a routine supply run. From there, Elena would travel by ground to her Overwatch position. Communication protocols were established using encrypted radios that couldn't be monitored by official channels. Elena would have constant contact with the coordination team, allowing her to provide real-time intelligence about the target location. Most importantly, they established abort codes and extraction procedures. If Elena or the coordination team detected any sign that the operation had been compromised, they would implement immediate withdrawal protocols. Elena, Maria said as they prepared to leave, are you sure you want to do this? Once we start moving equipment and personnel, it becomes very difficult to stop. Elena looked around the room at the faces of people who were risking their careers and their freedom to support her mission. She thought about the hostages whose lives might depend on precision shooting that the official mission might not be able to provide. She thought about all the qualified women who would come after her, and whether this action might help open doors that had been closed to them. I'm sure, Elena said. Let's prove that taking someone's rifle away doesn't make them any less dangerous when it counts. As the group dispersed to make final preparations, Elena realized she had crossed a line from which there was no return. In 48 hours, she would either be a hero who had helped save lives and proven a crucial point about military policy, or a criminal who had violated military law and ruined multiple careers. Either way, Elena Martinez was about to show the world what happened when you took a rifle away from someone who was born to be a marksman. The weapon they had confiscated was just a tool. The real weapon was Elena herself, and no policy change could take that away. The helicopter lifted off from the base at 0300 hours, its rotors cutting through the darkness as Captain Torres navigated toward their destination. Elena sat in the cargo area, surrounded by legitimate communications equipment that provided perfect cover for her real mission. Her modified rifle was concealed inside a standard equipment case that looked identical to dozens of others being transported. 20 minutes to landing zone, Torres announced through the headset. Weather's clear, no air traffic reported in the area. Elena checked her gear one final time. In addition to the rifle, she carried a complete sniper kit, rangefinder, wind meter, backup optics, and enough ammunition for an extended engagement. Everything had been carefully selected and tested to ensure maximum effectiveness. Her stomach churned with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. This was her first real combat mission, despite years of training. The difference between hitting targets on a range and Potentially taking human lives in a hostage situation felt enormous. Elena, Torres called out, I want you to know that whatever happens today, we're doing the right thing. I've seen too many qualified people pushed aside because of politics. Elena appreciated the support, but her mind was focused on the mission ahead. According to the latest intelligence reports, the hostage situation had become more complicated overnight. The hostage takers had moved their prisoners to different locations within the building, making rescue operations more challenging. The helicopter touched down at a civilian airfield 40 miles from the target location. Elena quickly transferred her equipment to a waiting truck driven by one of Maria's contacts, a former military contractor named Rodriguez who specialized in transportation for unofficial operations. From here, we drive for 2 hours, Rodriguez explained as they loaded Elena's gear. I'll get you within half a mile of your Overwatch position. After that, you're on foot. The drive through the countryside gave Elena time to review her mission parameters one final time. Her primary objective was to provide Overwatch support for the official rescue team, taking action only if their marksman proved inadequate for the required shots. Her secondary objective was to gather intelligence and provide real-time updates to the coordination team. Most importantly, Elena had strict rules of engagement. She would only use lethal force if it was clearly necessary to save hostage or military personnel lives. The goal was to supplement the official mission, not to interfere with it unnecessarily. Tell me about the Overwatch position, Elena said as they drove through rolling hills toward the target area. Rodriguez consulted a detailed map. It's an abandoned agricultural building on elevated ground about 800 meters from the target. Good sight lines, multiple exit routes, and it's been empty for months, so there's no risk of civilian interference. What about security around the target building? Local police have established a perimeter at 200 meters, but they're not equipped for a situation like this. The official rescue team will expand that perimeter when they arrive. Elena studied aerial photographs of the target location. The embassy compound consisted of a main building where the hostages were believed to be held, surrounded by smaller structures and a perimeter wall. Several nearby buildings offered potential sniper positions, but the abandoned agricultural facility provided the best combination of range, concealment, and escape routes. As they approached the target area, Elena could see signs of the developing crisis. Police roadblocks controlled access to the region, and military vehicles were beginning to arrive at staging areas. The official rescue operation was clearly in its final preparation phases. Rodriguez stopped the truck at a dirt road leading toward Elena's destination. From here, you walk. The building is about half a mile through those trees. I'll be waiting at the alternate extraction point we discussed. Elena shouldered her equipment pack and checked her rifle case one final time. Rodriguez, if something goes wrong and I don't make it to extraction, make sure the coordination team knows that this was entirely my decision. Don't let anyone else take responsibility for my actions. Elena, nothing's going wrong. You're the best marksman I've ever seen, and you're doing this for all the right reasons. Just focus on the mission and trust your training. The walk through the wooded terrain to her Overwatch position took Elena 45 minutes. She moved carefully, using techniques learned during advanced training to avoid detection while covering ground quickly. The abandoned building appeared exactly as described in the mission briefing, structurally sound but clearly in use for months. Elena entered through a rear door and made her way to the second floor, where large windows provided clear sight lines to the target compound. She spent 30 minutes preparing her firing position, setting up her rifle and optics for maximum accuracy while ensuring she remained invisible from outside observation. Through her scope, Elena could see the embassy compound in detail. The main building was 3 stories tall, with multiple windows and balconies. Police barriers surrounded the immediate area, but Elena could see figures moving around inside the building, some of whom might be hostages, others definitely hostage takers. At 0800 hours, Elena established radio contact with the coordination team. Overwatch in position, she reported quietly. Clear sight lines to target building. I count at least 6 figures visible through windows, unable to determine hostage versus hostile status at this range. Catherine's voice crackled through the encrypted radio. Copy, Overwatch. Official rescue team, ETA 90 minutes. Begin detailed observation and report any significant developments. Elena settled into what she knew would be a long period of careful watching and waiting. Through her scope, she began mapping the layout of the target building and tracking movement patterns of the people inside. This intelligence would be valuable regardless of whether she ultimately needed to take any shots. Over the next hour, Elena identified several crucial details about the situation. The hostage-takers appeared to be professional and well-organized rather than desperate amateurs. They moved with military precision and maintained good discipline about exposing themselves to potential sniper fire. More concerning, Elena observed that the hostages were being moved frequently between rooms. This suggested that the hostage-takers were aware of potential rescue operations and were taking countermeasures to complicate any assault. At 0900 hours, Elena reported her observations to the coordination team. The hostiles are more sophisticated than initial reports indicated. They're using professional movement techniques and keeping hostages mobile. This is going to be a challenging rescue operation. Copy that, Overwatch. Official team is being briefed on updated situation assessment. Continue observation and stand by for further instructions. Elena watched as military vehicles began arriving at staging areas around the compound. The official rescue team was preparing for their assault, and she could see snipers taking positions on nearby buildings. Through her scope, she identified Corporal Miller setting up his position about 400 meters from the target. Coordination, I have eyes on the official marksman position. Range to target approximately 400 meters, good sight lines to eastern windows, but limited coverage of western exposure. Roger, Overwatch. Monitor official team positions and be prepared to provide support if required. Elena continued her surveillance, noting every detail that might be important for the rescue operation. She identified at least 3 separate rooms where hostages appear to be held, tracked the movement patterns of the hostage-takers, and mapped potential entry points for the rescue team. At 1030 hours, the situation changed dramatically. Elena observed armed figures moving onto the roof of the target building, taking positions that would allow them to fire down on any rescue team approach. This development wasn't visible from the official sniper positions due to angle limitations. Coordination, this is Overwatch with critical intelligence. Hostiles have taken elevated positions on the target building roof. They have clear fields of fire on all official approach routes. The official marksman cannot engage these positions from his current location. There was a long pause before Catherine responded. Overwatch, can you engage the roof positions if necessary? Elena calculated the angles and distances carefully. Affirmative. I have clear sight lines to all roof positions. Range approximately 820 meters. Wind conditions favorable. I can eliminate roof positions, but only with precision shots. Stand by, Overwatch. We're consulting with contacts inside the official operation. Elena waited, her crosshairs centered on the closest hostile figure on the roof. The man was armed with what appeared to be an automatic rifle and was clearly positioning himself to ambush the rescue team. If Elena had been part of the official operation, eliminating this threat would be a routine decision. As an unauthorized participant, taking the shot would cross a line that could never be uncrossed. Overwatch, official team has been notified of roof positions, but cannot adjust their sniper placement without compromising other aspects of the operation. You are authorized to engage roof positions if they threaten rescue team personnel. Elena took a deep breath. Authorization from the coordination team wasn't the same as official military authorization, but it was enough for her purposes. If the rescue team's lives were at stake, she would take whatever action was necessary. At 1100 hours, Elena watched the official rescue team begin their approach to the compound. 8 men moved in coordinated teams toward different entry points, while Corporal Miller provided overwatch from his position. Everything appeared to be proceeding according to plan until Elena saw the rooftop hostiles preparing to engage. Coordination. Roof hostiles are targeting the rescue team. I need immediate authorization to engage. You have authorization, Overwatch. Eliminate the threats. Elena centered her crosshairs on the first hostile figure. At 820 meters, the shot required perfect calculation of wind drift, bullet drop, and target movement. Elena controlled her breathing, squeezed the trigger with steady pressure, and watched through her scope as the bullet found its target. The first hostile dropped instantly. Elena immediately shifted to the second target, calculated the new angle, and fired again. Another clean hit. The third hostile, realizing his companions were being eliminated by an unseen sniper, attempted to take cover behind a rooftop structure. Elena tracked his movement and waited for him to expose himself. When he leaned out to try to locate her position, Elena fired her third shot. The bullet passed through the small gap between the structure and the hostile's position, dropping him immediately. 3 roof hostiles eliminated, Elena reported calmly. Rescue team approach routes are clear. Outstanding shooting, Overwatch. Official team is proceeding with building entry. Elena continued monitoring the situation as the rescue team breached the building and began clearing rooms. Through her scope, she could see muzzle flashes and movement inside the structure as the operation progressed. Everything seemed to be going according to plan until Elena spotted a problem that would change everything. 2 additional hostiles were moving toward a room where Elena had earlier observed hostages being held. The official team appeared to be unaware of their approach, and Elena realized that a hostage execution might be imminent. Coordination. I have 2 hostiles approaching a hostage room on the 2nd floor, western side. Official team is not in position to intercept. Can you engage through the windows? Elena studied the situation carefully. The hostiles were visible through large windows, but hostages might also be in the same room. A mistake could kill innocent people instead of saving them. Negative on window shots. Too much risk of hitting hostages. But I have an idea. Elena had noticed during her earlier surveillance that the building had external fire escape stairs on the western side. The 2 hostiles would have to pass an exposed section if they continued toward the hostage room. It would be a challenging shot, moving targets at extreme range through a narrow window of opportunity, but it was feasible. I can engage targets during their movement along the external fire escape. Window of opportunity, approximately 10 seconds. Take the shots, Overwatch. Elena positioned herself for the most difficult shooting sequence of her career. She would have perhaps 5 seconds between targets, with no opportunity for adjustments or corrections. Both shots had to be perfect the first time. The first hostile appeared in the narrow exposure zone Elena had identified. She led the target slightly to account for his movement, squeezed the trigger, and watched him fall. 4 seconds later, the second hostile appeared in the same zone. Elena adjusted for the different angle and fired. Both hostiles were eliminated before they could reach the hostage room. 2 additional hostiles eliminated. Hostage room secure. Elena had now fired 5 shots and eliminated 5 targets in just over 3 minutes. Each shot had been taken under different conditions, different ranges, different angles, different tactical situations. Yet each shot had been lethal and precise. Overwatch. Official team reports building secure. All hostages recovered alive. Outstanding work. Elena felt a surge of relief mixed with exhaustion. The mission had been successful, the hostages were safe, and the rescue team had completed their objectives without casualties. Her unauthorized support had made a crucial difference in the operation's success. But Elena also realized that she had just crossed a line from which there was no return. She had taken 5 lives during an unauthorized military operation. Whatever happened next, her military career as she had known it was over. Coordination, beginning extraction procedures. Mission complete. Roger, Overwatch. Extraction team is en route to your location. Elena, I want you to know that what you did today saved lives and proved a point that needed proving. Elena began packing her equipment, carefully policing her brass, and ensuring she left no evidence of her presence. As she prepared to leave the abandoned building, she reflected on what she had accomplished. In 83 seconds of actual shooting time, Elena had eliminated 5 armed hostiles and directly contributed to the successful rescue of 3 American diplomats. She had proven that women could perform in combat roles just as effectively as men, and she had demonstrated that excluding qualified personnel based on gender was not just unfair, but potentially dangerous. But Elena also knew that the real test was just beginning. Now she had to face the consequences of her actions and find a way to turn what she had done into lasting change for military policies. The hardest part of her mission was still ahead. Elena reached the extraction point just as Rodriguez's truck appeared through the morning mist. Her hands were steady as she loaded her equipment, but her mind raced with the implications of what she had just accomplished. 5 shots, 5 eliminations, 83 seconds that would either vindicate her actions or destroy her life. How did it go? Rodriguez asked as they drove away from the target area. Mission successful. Hostages recovered safely. No friendly casualties, Elena reported with military precision. She didn't mention that her own future was now completely uncertain. The drive back to the helicopter landing zone gave Elena time to process what she had experienced. Taking human lives, even in defense of innocent hostages, was different from anything she had imagined during training. Each shot had been necessary. Each target had posed a clear threat to either hostages or rescue personnel, but the weight of those decisions would stay with her forever. Captain Torres was waiting with the helicopter engines already running. Elena, I've been monitoring official communications. The mission was a complete success, but there are questions being asked about unidentified sniper support. Elena climbed into the helicopter with her equipment. How long do we have before those questions turn into investigations? Not long. Official debriefing starts in 3 hours. There will be ballistics analysis, trajectory calculations, and very detailed questions about who fired shots that the official marksman couldn't have taken. As they flew back toward the base, Elena realized that her window for controlling the narrative was rapidly closing. Soon, official investigators would piece together evidence that someone had provided unauthorized support for the rescue mission. When that happened, Elena would need to decide whether to come forward voluntarily or wait to be discovered. The helicopter landed at the base just as Elena's encrypted radio crackled with a message from Catherine. Elena, we need to meet immediately. There have been developments that affect our next steps. Elena quickly stored her equipment and made her way to the underground meeting room. When she arrived, she found the coordination team in intense discussion with several people she didn't recognize. The atmosphere was tense, but not panicked. Elena, excellent work today, Catherine said. Your shooting saved the mission and probably saved lives. But we have a situation developing that requires immediate decisions. Maria stepped forward with a grim expression. Elena, someone talked. We don't know who, but there are indications that official investigators already know about unauthorized personnel involvement in the rescue operation. Elena felt her stomach drop. How much do they know? Enough to start asking the right questions, Sergeant Kim replied. Within hours, they'll have trajectory analysis that proves shots were fired from your position. After that, it's just a matter of time before they identify everyone involved. One of the unknown faces at the table spoke up. Elena recognized him as a high-ranking officer, though he was dressed in civilian clothes. Elena, I'm Colonel David Harrison, Strategic Operations Division. What you did today was remarkable, but it's also put several important people in very difficult positions. Elena Straightenet. Sir, I take full responsibility for my actions. No one else should face consequences for decisions I made. Colonel Harrison studied Elena carefully. That's admirable, but it's not how this works. When unauthorized personnel successfully complete a classified military operation, it raises questions about why they weren't authorized in the first place. Catherine opened a folder filled with official-looking documents. Elena, there are 2 paths forward. The first is that we all deny involvement and hope the investigation doesn't find enough evidence to prove what happened. The second is that we go public with what you accomplished and use it to challenge the policies that forced this situation. What does going public mean exactly? Elena asked. Colonel Harrison leaned forward. It means congressional hearings, media attention, and probably criminal charges while the legal system sorts out whether your actions were justified. It also means that every detail of this operation becomes public knowledge, which could compromise ongoing military capabilities. Elena understood the stakes. Going public would make her a symbol in the fight for military gender equality, but it would also expose operational methods and potentially endanger future missions. Staying silent would protect classified capabilities, but might allow unjust policies to continue unchanged. There's a third option, Maria said quietly. Elena could disappear. New identity, relocation, and a fresh start somewhere the investigation can't reach her. Absolutely not, Elena said immediately. I'm not running from what I did. If there are consequences, I'll face them. Colonel Harrison nodded approvingly. Elena, I hoped you'd say that, because there's actually a fourth option that might serve everyone's interests. He opened a briefcase and pulled out documents bearing official government seals. What if I told you that your actions today weren't entirely unauthorized? Elena stared at him in confusion. Sir, I don't understand. Elena, the policy changes that led to your transfer weren't just about military gender roles. They were part of a larger strategy to identify and test personnel who would take initiative when faced with unjust restrictions. Catherine smiled for the first time since Elena had returned. Elena, you've been under evaluation for months. Your shooting scores, your reaction to the transfer, your willingness to work outside official channels. Everything was being monitored and assessed. Elena felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. Are you saying this was all a setup? Not exactly, Colonel Harrison explained. The hostage situation was real, the rescue mission was real, and the danger was real. But your involvement wasn't as unauthorized as you believed. There are people within the military who need to know that current policies are creating operational weaknesses. Sergeant Kim spread out photographs from the rescue mission. Elena, your shots today eliminated threats that the official marksman couldn't have engaged due to positioning limitations. Without your intervention, the mission might have failed and people might have died. More importantly, Colonel Harrison continued, you've proven that excluding qualified personnel based on gender creates unnecessary tactical vulnerabilities. That's a conclusion that needs to be formally documented and addressed through policy changes. Elena tried to process this information. So, I won't face criminal charges? You'll face a formal review board, and you'll have to testify about your actions and motivations, Colonel Harrison said. But the review will be conducted by people who understand the larger implications of what you've accomplished. Catherine handed Elena another set of documents. Elena, you have a choice to make. You can accept assignment to a new special operations unit that's being formed to address capability gaps in current military structure. Or you can request discharge and return to civilian life with a full record of your service achievements. Elena stared at the assignment papers. The unit being described sounded like exactly what she had dreamed of when she first joined the military. Challenging missions requiring the highest levels of skill and dedication, without artificial limitations based on gender. What about everyone else who helped me? Elena asked. What happens to them? Everyone who supported your mission will be offered positions in the new unit or related assignments, Colonel Harrison assured her. What you accomplished today wasn't possible without a team, and we understand that. Maria grinned. Elena, some of us have been working toward this for years. Today was the proof we needed that current policies are wrong. Elena looked around the room at the people who had risked their careers to support her mission. And if I accept this assignment, what would be my first mission? Colonel Harrison's expression became serious. Training other personnel, male and female, who have been excluded from combat roles due to policy restrictions rather than capability limitations. Elena, you'd be building the unit that you wished had existed when you needed it. The offer was everything Elena had hoped for when she first decided to challenge the system. But she needed to understand one more thing. Colonel, be honest with me. How much of today was real and how much was orchestrated? The hostage situation was completely real. The rescue mission was completely real. The danger to all personnel was completely real, Colonel Harrison replied. What was orchestrated was creating a situation where someone with your capabilities and motivation would be positioned to prove a point that needed proving. Elena considered everything she had learned. Her grandfather had fought against injustice in World War II. Her father had served with honor through multiple conflicts. Now Elena had the opportunity to change military policies that would affect generations of future service members. "I accept the assignment," Elena said, "but I have conditions." Colonel Harrison raised an eyebrow. "What conditions?" "First, I want guarantees that no one who supported my mission today will face negative career consequences. Second, I want the new unit to have clear authority to recruit personnel based solely on capability, regardless of gender or other irrelevant factors. Third, I want regular opportunities to recommend policy changes based on operational experience." "Agreed," Colonel Harrison said immediately. "Elena, you'll find that the new unit has support at the highest levels of military and civilian leadership. Today's events will be used as a case study for why capability-based assignments serve national security better than policy-based restrictions." As the meeting concluded, Elena realized that her rebellion against unjust policies had actually been part of a larger plan to challenge and change those policies. She had thought she was risking everything to prove a point, but she had actually been helping to document the need for systemic change. 2 weeks later, Elena stood in a briefing room addressing the first class of recruits for the new Special Capabilities Unit. The class included men and women who had been excluded from various military roles due to policy restrictions rather than capability limitations. "What we're building here," Elena told the recruits, "is proof that the best way to serve your country is to use your abilities to their fullest extent, regardless of what anyone else thinks those abilities should be." Elena thought about the rifle that had been taken away from her months earlier. That weapon had been just a tool, and tools could be replaced. The real weapon, her skills, her determination, and her willingness to stand up for what was right, had never been in danger of being confiscated. In the end, Elena Martinez had proven that taking someone's rifle away might disarm them temporarily, but it couldn't take away their ability to eliminate threats when it mattered most. And, more importantly, she had proven that fighting injustice sometimes required more than just following orders. It required the courage to do what was right, even when the system said it was wrong. The 5 men Elena had eliminated in 83 seconds during that rescue mission had been threatening innocent lives. But the real victory had been proving that qualified people should be judged by their capabilities, not by characteristics that had nothing to do with their ability to serve their country effectively. Elena's rifle had been returned to her as part of her new assignment, but she rarely thought about it anymore. The weapon that mattered most was the one that nobody could ever take away. The weapon of competence, courage, and determination to make the world a better place through service to others. Years later, when Elena had become the commander of one of the military's most effective special operations units, she would tell new recruits about the day she learned that sometimes the most important battles are fought not against foreign enemies, but against the policies and attitudes that prevent good people from serving their country to the best of their abilities. "They took my rifle away," Elena would conclude her story, "and I still eliminated 5 men in 83 seconds. That's when I learned that the real weapon isn't what you carry in your hands. It's what you carry in your heart and your mind. And that's something nobody can ever take away from you."